Hello, we are going to be working with apples and symmetry. Apples grow on trees, often in orchards. They're one of my favorite fruit. And boys and girls, we are going to be focusing on the different colored apples, yellow, red, green, and the fact that they actually are mixed colors. They're not just really one solid color. Of course, these are apples. Some of them are cut in half, some of them have worms, and you can see a leaf on a few. Here is an apple dissected in half. And here's a drawing of a symmetrical apple with a cute little character. You can see it has a worm. Alright, I'm going to introduce you to symmetry. Symmetry is when an object looks exactly the same on one side as it does on the other. To see if an object is symmetrical, you draw a line of symmetry or a line dividing an object to show a perfect match on each side. It's like making a mirror image. Here's an example of 3 images that are perfectly symmetrical. Alright, you will be able to choose from yellow, green, or red paper. On the paper, you're going to find half of an apple. You're going to carefully use your scissors and keep your paper folded while you cut half of the apple out. Make sure to stay on the line, and when you get close to the stem, possibly turn your paper so that you can get a nicer cut. Once you have cut the apple out, take your scraps to the side and make some additional cuts if you need to. So boys and girls, when you open up this half of an apple, you are going to have a perfectly symmetrical apple. Alright children, we are going to trace along the edge of the apple to show the skin, going all the way around carefully around the edges, maybe making a slight curve up in the middle, going back, down and around. We'd like to show the skin. Once you get to the top, by the stem, dip down a little bit because the skin goes a little bit inside where the stem is growing. Trace your lines for the stem. I'm just going to add a little black line here. Once you have the stem drawn and the skin, possibly start on the core. There's a little part of the core at the bottom, and you can draw a line from the top to the bottom, showing that there's 2 halves. And once we have the stem set, we're going to draw the core right in the middle. That's where the seeds grow. I've got 2 halves of the core. I'm going to add a few seeds. Some people might want to draw a little worm on the edge. That's fine. And later we can add a leaf to the stem with some green paper. But first of all, we're going to work on the inside of this apple, showing the skin, the core, the flesh, and the seeds, and the stem. Finally, we'll be adding color. Excuse me. I'd like to start with the flesh of the apple in whites and yellow. You can add a little bit of the paint stick today over the core. Try not to press too hard on the core because see, there's seeds inside that you'd like to add some different color to. But we're going to follow our lines and add that fleshy part of an apple, which tastes So very delicious. First we'll layer with white or yellow. We need to let it dry before we layer any other colors. Paint sticks need to dry between color layers, and it takes about 90 seconds, which is a minute and a half. First, I'd really like to get enough paint on this apple. I'm going to speed up the film so that it doesn't take us so long to watch this process. You get the idea. You've got one color, let it dry, come back with our yellow for some blending. These colors are not perfectly solid, so we want to mix and blend colors together. There's also a bit of green in this apple, in the flesh. I can add green to other sections as long as your paper feels fairly dry, and do a little blending. I really like this light green touched on top of some of the white and yellow. Now I chose red paper, so I am going to use a red paint stick to brighten the color of the skin. And it is necessary to put a piece of paper under my project so that I don't get my tabletop completely full of paint. But I really like to work on the edge, so it's going to get a little bit off this paper. After I add the red, I'm going to really let it dry for a while before I add any browns or greens to the top of that red. I'm going back into the core, blending some more colors together, and of course, I'm going to let it dry before I add a little bit of brown. The top is dry up here on this stem, so let me add the brown here. Boys and girls, take your time, enjoy yourself. If you'd like to add a worm, you might want to get a crayon out once it's dry and draw one. Kind of a squiggly line that curves with possibly a face, you decide. Now, I think I'm ready to add the seeds and some blended colors over this red when I can tell that the red paint is drying or dry. I really love seeing that light green blended over the red skin. There's even a little green in the stem. Boys and girls, enjoy yourself and learn a little bit about symmetry and harvest apples. Thank you. Boys and girls, I imagine everyone noticed when they cut the apple out of this paper, if they cut on the line and didn't break up their paper too much, you're going to see that there's a negative shape. It's missing, but there's still a shape there. I can see it. If you lay it down on another piece of paper and carefully open it up, you are going to find that apple shape when you see it through another sheet of paper. And boys and girls, some people like to glue this down, and now they have a secondary piece of artwork for themselves that shows that shape of the symmetrical apple just through a negative shape that really isn't even there until you glue it to another piece of paper and you can clearly see it. Here is the apple. Once again. Thank you.